Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library. So grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today is a very special day because we are going on vacation. A much-deserved vacation. Now I know what you're probably thinking, Lee, how can we go on vacation in the time of a pandemic? To which I would say, correct, you socially conscious human. We cannot go on vacation or should not go on vacation during the time of a pandemic to be considerate to all the other countries who are trying to get a handle on COVID just like we are. So we are going on vacation via our favorite things here on BookTube, books. Without further ado, let me play you the intro for the Around the World in 325 Days reading challenge. Okay, so maybe we can't actually go on vacation, but that doesn't mean we can't explore new places to discover. So come with me as I journey across all 7 continents and read the best literature these countries have to offer. Come join me as we go around the world in 325 days. I'm so excited to be going on this journey with you all. This is the first book challenge I have ever created here on BookTube. And while I have created the concept of this challenge myself, the book titles actually come from tailaway.com, who compiled this book list featuring books written about other countries or featuring authors who are from other countries. And I'm so excited. Go check them out if you want good book references. They're amazing. However, the Around the World in 325 Days challenge was inspired by one of my favorite movies and books, Around the World in 80 Days. Unfortunately, there are too many books to fit in 80 days, and I do not have the time to even attempt doing that. So I decided to go from February to December in 2021 and explore countries on the 7 continents we have here on Earth. So every few months, we will be traveling to a new continent and exploring the countries there via the pages of books that we love. Pack your sunscreen, get your metaphorical boarding pass, and let's go. For the months of February and March, we are going to be exploring this wonderful continent called North America. It is where I live, and so I thought I'd start with a little mini staycation. However, we are going to be exploring the countries inside North America, which is good because it is so snowy here in Midwestern US, and I need some warmer climes to chase away the sad. So we are going to be exploring Canada, the United States, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. I'm so excited. I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. I am very excited. So without further ado, we're going first to Canada. And the book we will be reading to highlight that wonderful maple syrupy country is The Blind Assassin by Miss Margaret Atwood, the Queen herself. I'm so excited. I've never read anything by Margaret Atwood before. I've never even seen The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. And so I'm really excited to start The Blind Assassin. It won the Booker Prize. It was published in 2000 at the turn of the millennium. What an iconic time to have a book published. It's great. This book has been described in several different genres that somehow all fit together like an odd puzzle. It has elements of, I'm reading off the back, gothic drama, romantic suspense, and science fiction fantasy all wrapped up in spellbinding narrative. And I mean, what more could you ask for? It's Margaret Atwood. This book opens with the sentence, 10 days after the war, my sister Laura drove a car off of a bridge. And those words are spoken by Iris Chase Griffin, who is part of a very affluent and opulent family in Ontario society. And it opens with Iris telling the story of her sister's supposed suicide in 1945, just after World War II. And then in the middle of that story, the book, The Blind Assassin, interrupts that narrative, and it then switches to a science fiction story about two nameless narrators who are meeting together in these sort of back alley pubs and hidden places. It's obvious those two characters aren't supposed to be seen in public together, and yet they're meeting up and creating this science fiction story about another world. And then it cuts back to Iris in 1947, 2 years after her sister commits suicide, to the death of Iris's husband, who is a very affluent man in Canadian society, and he was found dead in his boat. And so now there's this sort of mystery, suspense, another layer that is surrounding poor Iris. And so it interweaves this science fiction story that is told by these two nameless narrators and the interweaving stories of Laura and Iris, the Chase sisters, as well as revealing secrets and drama surrounding the Chase family. And I read the synopsis on the back of this book, and I was even more confused than I was when I was looking up the reviews on this book. But I am in the middle of this book. I just started it last week. I am about a third of the way through book 3. In here, it is divided into books rather than chapters. It almost reads like short story format. I am loving it a lot. There's a little bit of mixed media in here with newspaper articles and those kinds of things. Within the first 3 pages, I was highlighting almost everything, and I couldn't keep up with it. So I'm anticipating the rest of this book to be just as good. So we're going to snowy Canada first. Not to worry, it will warm up soon. So from Canada, we will be heading to the United States with To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This one I'm particularly excited about. I read To Kill a Mockingbird in high school, and so I wanted a different edition of it, and so I decided to get the graphic novel version of To Kill a Mockingbird. It is illustrated by Fred Fordham. I am so excited. If you have never heard of this story before, I mean, it's a classic. But it follows the story of Atticus Finch, who is a lawyer in Macomb, Alabama, and it also follows the story of his 2 children, Jem and Scout, as they deal with the race and class and injustice issues that surround the Deep South in the 1930s. This book was published in the 1960s, which was sort of the height of the civil rights movement in America, and it was an incredibly timely story. Atticus is asked to represent or defend a black man in their community who is falsely accused of assaulting a white woman, and then it covers the tumult that was caused to that community because of this case. And it also follows the story of Boo Radley, who is one of the more iconic characters of this story, who is sort of this secretive monster of a person that lives in their town, and Scout and Jem encounter him once and then sort of go about uncovering why Boo Radley became this monster and the fact that he really isn't a monster. And so it's 2 dual timelines moving together, again, challenging opinions and prejudices in the Deep South. It's such an incredibly poignant book. I loved reading this in high school. I cried so much during the movie. And while it isn't necessarily as PC as we would like it to be today, there's some language in there, so I'm curious to see how much of that is included in the graphic novel version. Nevertheless, this is still an incredibly important book, and it covers a hard part of American history, and is definitely worth reading in today's world. So we're going to be touching on this classic part of American literature. And then from America, we are going to be traveling to Mexico with Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. I'm really excited about this one. I have heard about it for a long time. This follows the story of Tita, who is the youngest daughter of the De La Garza family at the turn of the century in Mexico. Turn of the 20th century in Mexico, excuse me. This book is written in monthly installments that include recipes and home remedies, but the main plot of this story follows the story of Tita and her lover, Pedro. Now, Tita is the youngest, and tradition states that she is the one who has to take care of her mother. And so because of that, her mother forbids her from marrying Pedro and eventually tells Pedro that he has to marry Tita's oldest sister, and the tensions in the family increase. I believe there's some reference to the Mexican Rebellion in here. I'm not entirely sure about that. But it combines magical realism, which is something I have not read a lot of, as well as a little bit of historical fiction in there. And Tita basically expresses herself through cooking. And so she's sharing these bubbling emotions about being constrained by tradition, but wanting to love who she wants to love, and expresses herself through cooking. The blurb on the front says, "A mystical Mexican love story that will charm the palate and the heart," which I'm a big foodie and I'm a sucker for a good love story, so I'm here for it. A lot of people have said that if you like the Joy Luck Club, which my mom read and enjoyed, that you would like this, very anecdotal, or the Make an American Quilt, I think is the other one referenced in here. If you've ever read any of those, then I think you will really like this book. So I'm ready for some warmth and a little bit of spice. And then from Mexico, we will be traveling to the Dominican Republic with The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm really excited for this one. This one has also been on the top of many people's reading list. It won a Pulitzer, New York Times bestseller. We love to see it for international literature. This follows the story of Oscar Wilde, who is an incredibly sweet boy, but he is very overweight, and is a teenager, and ultimately he wants to become, I think he says, like the Dominican version of J.R.R. Tolkien, but he also really wants to find love. But life does not seem to be going his way because of the Fuku, I think is how you pronounce it, but basically it's this curse that has spanned 4 generations of his family and followed them from the Dominican Republic to the US, back to the Dominican Republic. And it sounds like it's going to be a really good coming-of-age story with a little bit of grappling with culture versus living in America and pursuing, you know, your dreams. And I love to see it, especially that he wants to become the next J.R.R. Tolkien. I love it. We all want to be J.R.R. Tolkien, to be honest, but this also takes place in New Jersey. He lives in the ghettos of New Jersey, and so I think it, again, will be a good story that touches on things like prejudice and racism. I don't know a whole lot more about this story, so if some of my parts of the interpretation of the biography or the synopsis on the back is incorrect, please let me know. But I'm really excited to read this one. It's won so many awards. It has such beautiful excerpts on the back, such high praise. We love to see it. So after the Dominican Republic, we will be traveling to Jamaica with The Book of Night Women by Marlon James. This follows the story of Lilith, who is a girl who was born into slavery on a Jamaican sugar plantation at the end of the 18th century. And when she is born, this group of women called the Night Women, who are plotting a conspiracy to basically have a slave revolt. They recognize in Lilith that she is going to be a key part of their revolt. And when Lilith gets older and comes to understand more of her own feelings and thoughts and desires and identity and what she imagines as possible for a girl in slavery, it is different from what the Night Women are imagining, and she starts to chafe against what they want from her and threatens to topple their whole conspiracy. And it's a little bit of a coming-of-age story. It definitely has some darker topics in here, but I'm really excited to explore more about the history of Jamaica. I haven't really read anything about Jamaica, and so I'm excited to learn more about their culture, but also to touch on some of the darker parts of their history. So if you're interested in this, we're going to Jamaica, and then the last stop we will be making on this tour of the continent of North America is the Bahamas with Wind from the Carolinas by Robert Wilder. This book does not have an actual cover. You can look it up online. It's a really pretty sailboat set against a very pretty blue cerulean ocean. This book is set obviously in the Bahama Islands, and it's spans like a century and a half of time, basically following very wealthy aristocratic families in the US from Georgia and Virginia and Carolina, I think, who flee America after the Revolution to go live in the Bahamas because they are still loyal to England. And the Bahamas, I think, are in either a neutral territory or a territory claimed by Britain. I can't remember exactly. However, I spent a lot of time in college in a class called Literature of the Developing World, and in that class we talked a lot about these island countries who were colonized by white people, particularly Britain. And the awful things that they did to reshape and basically completely strip, you know, tradition and culture away from those islands. How some of them still, their economy relies so much on the tourist industry. There's a whole lot of stuff I could get into, but those are hard stories to read about the subjugation of those people. So I'm curious to see. It sounds like this is going to be a little bit of conspiracy, maybe a little bit of spying. I don't know a whole lot about this book, but it is pretty massive. This is the biggest book, definitely out of the 6 that we are reading. It is about 565 pages or so. It is another piece of history that I have never really read a whole lot about. When I first picked up this book and was reading the summary, I didn't necessarily realize, even though I'm sure it happened, that there were American people who were still loyal to England when the Revolution happened, and obviously would have been threatened, and so they fled, and obviously fled to a territory that was reformed to be British subjects. So I'm excited to read this part of history. I have no doubt that they will be darker topics that we are going to be exploring. That's going to be the theme for a lot of these countries that we visit. They're going to be touching on some harder issues. But in the year of education, let's do it together. So those are the 6 countries we're going to be vacationing to in the months of February and March. Obviously, there are more countries in North America than the 6 I've touched on. You know, despite having 325 days, I cannot get to every country. I did my darndest, but we couldn't cover all of them. So if I missed a country that you think I should read literature about, please let me know in the comments down below, and I would love to include it if we ever do a second round of this, or maybe I'll even shove an extra 5 books in February and March, who knows. But I really would love for you to join me on this vacation. Pack your sunscreen, pack your swimsuit, or a parka since we're starting in Canada, and I will see you when I see you in these new countries. Please let me know if you're going to participate in this reading challenge. I would love to discuss these books with you. You can also check me out on Lee Ellen's Library on Bookstagram. I will be posting more information about this book challenge over there, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. So if you like this video, go ahead and like this video, comment anything you would like to comment down below, and subscribe to Lee's Library. It really does help me out, and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly means the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers and bon voyage.